everybody from Malibash Studios. I am here with Brett Weiss. He's our Christmas charity this year, and we're so excited to have him and his fantastic foundation here with us, where we're going to just learn some of behind the scenes of how it started and all the great work that he is doing in Africa with the kids and teaching them and learning and giving them an opportunity that they wouldn't normally have. So, Brett, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm excited to learn more about how we can help you and how the audience can help you today.
Okay. Well, actually, first of all, thank you very much for having me on here. I appreciate any opportunity I have to talk about the kids in Kenya, the kids we're trying to help. And
Yeah,
I love talking about them and sharing their stories.
that's awesome. And I'm going to ask you some questions about how it got started. But um, the main thing is, you've worked for a long time and you realize that there's a huge need for education and how it can better the kids there, and not just for the boys and the girls, how much there was a disparity in that. And tell us a little bit of how you got started. What was the inspiring force?
Sure. Well, it always was a bucket list thing for me to go to Africa and kind of volunteer my time. And for many years, I made excuses to not do it. And then I finally went in 2009, and I spent about 3 weeks in this little village called Dago, Dago, in far southwestern Kenya. Village of 3,000 people who are as poor as any people on the face of the earth. Average family income less than $2 a day, no electricity, no plumbing, barely any food, barely any clothes. Most people have less than 4 years of school. AIDS has devastated that part of the world. But I met these people and I fell in love with them. They're just the nicest, hardest working, most kind people I've ever met. And I
Mm,
decided I needed to do something to help. It's like when I flew back home, I was like, I got to do something to help. How do you not do something to help them? And
yeah.
that's kind of what really motivated me. For a couple of years, I was still teaching then. I did some things every semester. We would do something to help. But in 2011 is when I decided I wanted to get more serious because almost nobody's going to school. Most of the women in the village have no school. So I decided to start the scholarship fund and said, let's send kids to high school, because in this village, and sadly, there's thousands of other villages like this, virtually nobody had ever gone to high school. And how in the world are you ever going to turn around extreme poverty until kids go to high school? It just isn't going to change. And I might add one thing, that one of the things I like to point out to people is more than half the children in the world live this way. It's not
Mm,
just like a few little kids in Kenya. And I really want people to know that, kind of how blessed we are here, because we take all this for granted. More than half the children in the world get little to no education. So I decided I need to do something to help. We started with one child in 2012. And then I said, well, let's raise some more money. We'll try to help some more children. And we're up to 101 now. And basically, what we do is we send children to high school based on an exam that they take at the end of 8th grade. Um, a very important point in that, though, and Ashley, you kind of started to talk about that, is this is a world that's very challenging for all children, but it's brutal for girls in all kinds of horrible ways. So we always divide our money equally, 50-50 between girls and boys. The girls tend to score lower on that exam, not because they're not as smart, but because of reasons beyond their control. They missed a lot of school. And so, matter of fact, of the 101 scholarships we've given, if it was just based on the test score, very few girls would have gone to high school. And we cannot end poverty unless girls, get an education. So we
mhm.
send kids to high school, and then we have kids that we help on to university, either university or vocational school from there. And in April, when the new school year is going to start there, we're going to add a bunch more. And people always ask me, how much are you going to add? I go, well, how much are we going to get in donations, right? The more donations we get, the more children we can help. So that's basically a quick overview of what we do.
That's fantastic, and I think it's really great that you can see the results too, and giving those kids those opportunities is huge, especially for speaking from a girl's perspective, that's really large.
Sure.
How much does what does it take for one child to go through school from beginning to end, and what does that look like?
And actually, it might be the best part of it all, because in US money, it's so little. I mean, we put 2 kids through college here. We know what education costs here. We send children to high school. They're all boarding schools for 4 years. This is room and board, books, fees, tuition, uniforms, everything they need. We buy them the toothpaste and their soap for $3,500 for all 4 years. That's $3 a day. $3 a day totally changes the child's life. And that's why, I'm real passionate about, I think we can create a world where every child gets a great education. It's just little old me. I mean, I'm not a billionaire and I'm not any smarter than anybody else. If I can do something, we're sending 101 kids to school, boy, we can do a lot more of this. So the cost is very, very little. And that's kind of the cool part of it all.
Yeah, that is really great. And especially, with being Christmas time, it's really, I think everybody's looking for, it's a time of giving, right? And it's just a really great opportunity to realize that you can help somebody with such a huge part of their life for such a small amount of money. And it just is it's a amazing thought and opportunity. Um, and what are some of the things that the kids, I mean, what do they enjoy the most? What are some things that the kids enjoy the most? What are some of their favorite studies?
Well, every child's different in terms of what they like, obviously. And, one of my favorite things is we do these video interviews when we're there with them. They're up on our YouTube channel. And, one of the things I ask is, what's your favorite subject? And, they're all different, just like kids would be here. The key part, though, is when you talk to them, the interviews I do with them are my favorite part because they are so appreciative of the opportunity that they have. Many of the kids they grew up with are back in the village and they didn't get that opportunity. And they know that for them, their lives probably aren't going to be any different than the life they've grown up in. But so they have this opportunity. People ask me, do they work hard? They work incredibly hard, every one of them, because they know the only way they're going to have a better life is through an education. Some have more academic ability than others, but they all work hard. Another thing that we do that I just want to mention quickly here is, when I started this, I visited lots of schools in Kenya because I needed to learn things, and it's very different there than it is here. These kids need financial help, but they need much more than that. The schools they go to, there are no guidance counselors or social workers. Their parents want them to get a great education, but they don't really know much about school. They're not equipped to help them. So we have 2 full-time people and 3 part-time people on the ground in Kenya. And the 2 full-time people are both university graduates trained to be teachers. We hired them to be what we call our mentor coordinators. And their job is to be totally engaged in the lives of our children. They meet with them every term. There are 3 terms at their school. They meet with the principal, assistant principal, their teachers. We get all of their report cards and we go over the report cards with them. I like to say, we're there to help them and praise them and what they do well. But also these kids face enormous challenges that most of us here couldn't even imagine. So we're there to help them to get through the challenges that they have. So our staff on the ground is really a key part of what we're doing. So I like to say we're doing more than just paying school fees. Paying the school fees is good. It's important, but we're doing much more than that.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask too, what are some of these to help us figure out, what a day looks like for these kids? What are some of the main challenges that these guys deal with to kind of help to bring to the forefront, basically, what these challenges are so that we can understand that? Because I know so many of these kids, from my experience, my step parents go over and take care of these kids and these families that are in such dire situations, and nobody could even imagine of how bad it is, like how their world, like how rough it is over there, and how a lot of it is just the difficult they have to worry about just being with each other, and not having food, not having proper even houses. I mean, they live in huts and things like that. So I think for us, what are some of the main things to help us realize what are some great things that they
Yeah.
run into on a daily basis that we wouldn't even understand?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And even though I've been there 6 times and I'm planning on going back in June, first time since COVID, I'm hoping to go. Even I've been there many times, it's still hard for me to fully comprehend it all.
Yeah.
The kids growing up in primary school, they have 1 meal a day, some
Mhm.
porridge. They might get a piece of fruit or a piece of vegetable. You see, they're very small in size because they're not getting proper nutrition. Of course, we also know when they're not getting proper nutrition, they're probably not learning that well. It's hard for them to learn. The only clothes they have are like a school uniform and something else that kind of comes from a charity. It's usually kind of tattered and torn. Yeah, you're right. They live in these little mud huts. AIDS has devastated this part of the world, so very few of these children have both parents. Many don't have either parent, and they're lucky, like if a grandma or an auntie takes them in, and the grandma's probably like 37 years old. Almost nobody there lives past 40, and most people will live and die and never see a doctor. There really isn't any medical care. And like the saddest, I visit lots of the mud huts. So the saddest one is like a grandma who's 37 years old, barely can take care of herself, and she has several little ones running around to take care of because their mom and dad are dead. And it's just incredibly sad. Um, for the girls, there's a lot of extra. I mean, teenage pregnancies and young girls being raped is a major, major problem. COVID made it worse. The kids were home for 9 months. When our kids are in high school, they're relatively safe because there's big walls around the high school, only one place you can get in, and there's a guard and so on. But not in school is very unsafe. So during COVID, rapes of young girls and teenage pregnancies went up dramatically. And it just incredibly sad. And so what happened was, like, our two full-time employees are Ernest and Christine. And I told them, I said, every day, I want you checking in with our kids and making sure they're safe. And January 4th, when kids return to school, I'm happy to say all of our kids returned and they returned safely. But the reality in a place like Kenya is thousands of kids did not return to school. Most of them are girls. The sad situation in Kenya is if a girl's pregnant, no high school will take her. The government is now talking about, gee, maybe we should do something about this. Yeah, I think we should. And these girls probably will never go back to school. They're going to have a baby. They're becoming mums now, as they would say. And the reality is they'll be permanent victims of COVID.
Yeah.
We talk here, you know, we've all have struggled. All kids have struggled, but we have chances to kind of like make it up. For thousands of girls in a place like Kenya, they're just done, and they're going to be a mom, and the cycle of poverty really just continues, and it's really sad. It's very, very hard for me to deal with that. We had a situation several years ago. We had just picked our new girls. The next day, I found out one of those girls was pregnant. It was the first time I learned that if you're pregnant, you can't go to high school. And so we ended up having to pick the next girl based on their score. And so think about, this girl went one day, she was going to go to high school, and the whole world was going to open up to her. And then the next day, it's all taken away. And that was an incredibly tough moment for me.
Wow, that is absolutely, oh, that's really just breathtaking to listen to that and realize there's so, I don't even know what the word would be for it. It's just such a harsh reality. And for them to have to deal with that, and have their lives completely change at such a young age when they don't even, they're just having the world open up for them possibly and
Right.
getting so many opportunities that never ever would probably come through, again. And it's just, wow, what a devastation. I appreciate you sharing that with us because I think that helps the audience really realize the, the desperate need for so many people to, get some education and also to have that help,
Right.
with whatever is needed down in Kenya, especially.
Yeah. There are times when I'm there, actually, that I just go to this little room I stay in and I cry
Yeah.
because their life is incredibly hard. Now, they don't necessarily know their life is hard because they don't know any
No.
other life. But for me, it's hard to watch all this, and sometimes I just go cry a little bit.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd be pretty much just in tears all the time because I couldn't stand it. I know when my stepmom comes back and my dad comes back from being over there, and they go over there at least once or twice a year. It's just, I mean, to see the videos and the photos, and it's just amazing that this even exists in the world that we live in today. It's just kind of like, what? Like, wow, how does this even exist? Like, how is this allowed to still be when the world is, we have so much social media, everybody has access to a phone. And that was one thing too, like these these guys down there in Africa may have a phone, but they live in poverty. They don't have maybe self-service or anything else like that. It's just the weirdest thing. Like they don't even have clothes. They don't even have, we my stepmom is a midwife, and so she'll take over things that'll help with pregnancies, because a lot of pregnancies don't make it just because of all the malnutrition that goes on. And so it doesn't take much. They said oats and peanut butter and like protein things that would help the moms out a lot. And it's just amazing, how they don't realize it either, but we do. And it's just like, why is this still allowed? Why is this still a thing? And
I
their
know.
governments are so corrupt. It's
Yeah.
just it's amazing.
That is a big part of the problem. These governments are very corrupt, and that's not the whole problem, but it's a big part of the problem. Yes.
Right.
But let me,
Right.
before I get you too depressed and so on, what keeps me going are the wonderful stories. So if I can, let me just quickly share a wonderful story
Yeah.
that's happened recently, because what happens is there are days I get really down doing this, and then there are so many incredible things that happen, and go, okay, this is great. This is why I do this. There's a young man named Nicholas. He's one of the boys on the cover of the book that I know you're going to show a little bit. He is in his 4th year of a 5-year engineering program at the University of Nairobi. Very, very bright young man. So I did a Zoom call with him recently. There's the book, and Nicholas is, well, let's see. Nicholas is the boy that's on your left. Okay. And Victor's the other one. But anyway, I was doing a Zoom call with him, and I asked what he's working on now. He said, I'm doing an internship where I'm helping to build a GPS system that will track weather patterns in Kenya. And, that's wherever, in a place like Kenya where everybody's a farmer, but they're all really like bad farmers. I'm sure that can help. Now, I don't know anything about engineering. Engineer, it's like Chinese when people talk engineering to me. So he's telling me about what he's doing. And to be frank, actually, I don't understand a word he's saying, but I'm pretending like I understand. I'm going like, yeah, Nicholas, that's great. That's great. But what I was really thinking about was, how cool is this? Here's a young man who a few years ago was growing up in a mud hut in Dago, Kenya, thinking he'd never even get to high school. Here he is now, 1 year away from an engineering degree, working on building a GPS system. I mean, it's just, that's what this is all about. Those are the moments, that help to drive me and get me over the bad moments. But I also want to point out to people, think of how many millions of children there are in the world, just like Nicholas, who don't get that opportunity, who will never have the opportunity that Nicholas has. And that's what drives me to one more kid, one more kid, one more kid, to give them the chance to have what Nicholas has.
No, that's really great, because you need the success stories, and it's just so nice to hear that there are some lives that get to have that opportunity and be touched. And do you have any other stories that you like to share there or similar to that before we jump into your book?
Well, there's a young man named Boss who is, and his name is Boss Anyango. I decided in my next life I wanted to be named Boss. I tried to tell him about Bruce Springsteen once, but he did not know who Bruce Springsteen was. So in there, so he just finished a 2-year program in plumbing. He went to a vocational school. He didn't make it to university, and went back. We're waiting right now. He took the government exam to get his license to be a plumber, and this is really cool because if you're a plumber in a place like Kenya, where more people are starting to get toilets and sinks and all those things, you can make a really good living. And so he's become our first student graduating from a vocational school.
Wow.
We also just had our first university graduate, a young man named Roy, who I actually just traded emails with just before I got on here. He just graduated the University of Nairobi with a degree in economics. Matter of fact,
Mm.
he just sent me as the ceremony kept being delayed because of COVID. The ceremony is actually going to be next week. And I said, you got to get me some pictures and I need a copy of your diploma. I want to see this here. So there's so many stories. There's a young woman named Hazel who was devastated because she couldn't make it to university. But instead now she's going to a 2-year teacher college to become a primary school teacher. And she's all excited about this. We just got a young woman named Lauren who's always wanted to be a journalist. There's a school in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya, called the Kenya Media School. I think I have the name right. She's entering the 2-year program to become a journalist. And I've actually connected her up. Someone who's on my advisory board, a former student of mine, is a writer for the Wall Street Journal. I have
Mm.
connected them up for her to be kind of like a mentor for her. So story after story after story.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What I know you shared a little bit of how an education will help these kids. How will it specifically help girls? I know it'll help the boys with getting like a better job, and they can train
Yes.
the younger ones and everything like that. How does that help the girl side of it, or both of them, a little bit more in detail
Well,
of
let's
how
address
that
the girl
helps?
side of it. We know that there's all kinds of data. For every year a girl is in school, much less likely to get AIDS. Every year a girl's in school, much less likely to become a child bride, and much less likely to become pregnant. I mean, all the problems of AIDS and child brides and having babies. That I mean, unfortunately, when you go to a place like Kenya, it's very common for girls 13, 14 years old to have babies, and the 16 or 17 they have two or three. All right, so education is how we beat that. How we stop all that. That's how we end those cycles there. And also in school, um, most of our girls go to a private girls' school. I send them especially to for a whole lot of reasons. Girls are learning to become strong and empowered young women. And
Mm,
a lady named Teresa is the head of it. And I like the way she puts it. She says, look, we're raising girls here that, they may want to get married someday. That's fine. But we're raising girls who will not need a man in their life.
mm,
And the problem in a place like Kenya is the men rule everything, and the men will have more education than the women usually, and the women are very dependent on these men, and a lot of times they're dependent on men who don't treat them very well and
yeah,
do a whole lot of bad things. So we feel strongly we're turning these girls into young women who are going to be empowered, and they're not going to let anybody take advantage of them. They're going to take their destiny in their own hands and decide what their life is going to be.
that's
And
amazing.
this will be a major difference. Another cool thing about this, when I say that we tend poverty, we have to get girls in education. One of the reasons for that is in the home. Um, well, the men kind of rule things, but in the home, the women run things. The men don't really want much to do with the home. That's like cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids. It's that old fashioned, traditional kind of
Yeah.
thing. The women run the homes. So, like, I've gotten to know a lot of Kenyans who live in the United States. And when you ask them, who do they credit their success to? Their mom. Everything's very British
Mm,
there, so their mom. And
mm,
because mother's the one who says, go do your homework, go to school, do this, do that. The fathers don't. So we know when we educate girls, their children are much more likely to get a better education. Their children are more likely to get better medical care. Their children are much more likely to really be empowered, things like that. So that's why
mm.
it's just so crucial that we educate these young girls.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Thank you for explaining that, Brett, because that helps us all see the huge value in that. And it's very interesting, like I said, in a world today, how things are still so much in, that dark time frame, that different mindsets where it's like we're so much more advanced than that. We need to start empowering, and I love what you guys are doing, that with both the boys and the girls, and showing them there are other options out there, and to help them to realize that they can do that from within themselves. They can bring that power out of them, and to become a next leader of their groups and stuff down that they have.
Right.
um
Something else
well,
that they do in high school that I really like for the boys is they all have classes in high school. They all take classes about for the boys learning how to respect girls and women. Because to be frank, they've grown up in an atmosphere there was not much respect for females. And so
right.
in high school, there's a lot done to teach them how to be respectful of girls and women and things like that. And I love that they do that kind of work.
Yeah, I do too. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Brett. I really am thankful for what you are doing with this whole foundation. And I'm just going to pop this across the screen again. These are where you guys can donate. There's also PayPal, and I'm sure you can find a LinkedIn and go to the website, and you can donate to this amazing cause. You guys would be helping so much. And Brett, once again, like, how much does it take to send even just one kid through school?
One child for all 4 years of high school is $3,500. And that's
Okay.
3,500 for all 4 years. One time I said that and somebody thought I meant per year. No, that's for
Oh.
all 4 years. And $3 a day. And yeah, we love it if people go to our website, whitescholarshipfoundation.org, and there's a variety of ways you can pay. You can set up recurring donations if you want one time. And obviously, you have the Venmo Cash App number there too that you can go right on your phone and donate some money now. And I don't want anybody to feel like it's too little. I
Mhm.
had a friend who I know was having some really, really tough times. He sent in $6 the other day. $6,
Oh,
that's 2 days of a kid going to high school. That's
yeah.
fantastic, so no donation is too small.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And then let's talk a little bit about your book as well. You have written this really cool book about, and the title's amazing. It says, "Just give them a hug, and the rest will be easy." And I'm going to show this here. Again,
Yeah,
I know I talked about a little or showed it earlier, but
yeah.
this is it. It tells kind of your story, your passion behind what you do, and your foundation, Hope, the Wise Scholarship Foundation. Tell me a little bit about your book. What inspired you to write that?
Yeah, after my first few trips, everybody kept saying, "You gotta write a book." I'm like, "What? I gotta write a book," and then I've never really thought of myself as a writer, to tell the truth. But then one day I keep these very detailed journals when I'm there, and some of the book reads kind of like a journal type stuff. And then I decided, well, okay, I can start taking pieces of this and make it into a book. I learned that writing a book is a lot of hard work. It was basically 3 years from the time I started it till the time it was actually published. And it's just my story. Just like I'm talking to you, Ashley, I love to share the story because it isn't even just about the kids in Kenya. I want people to know that more than half of the world, the children get little to no education. And so I share particularly my story in Kenya, what the people are like, what the cities are like, share stories about the children. So it's just my story. And it's my
Mhm.
hope that people can be inspired by that. So I met a man once who had just read my book, and he gave me was a real compliment for me. He said, after reading your book, I felt like I was in Kenya. And I consider that a great compliment because that's part of what I'm trying to do is give you the feel of what it's actually like to be in a country like Kenya.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's
available on
great.
Amazon.com. It's on Amazon. Just give them a hug and the rest will be easy.
That's fantastic, and I'm excited. I just got it, but I'm really excited to continue reading it. So I really appreciate you sending that to me,
Sure.
and it's just going to be a huge blessing. I've got a couple other to give away, so I'm excited to do that to
Yes.
some fun people. And um, Brett, thank you so much for coming on. I hope that we can help you out a little bit here with this time on here, and I'll definitely be talking to you a little bit after as well. But is there any last things that you would like to say to the audience?
Well, first of all, I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever you and your family celebrate. I would just ask everybody to really appreciate the blessings that you have,
Yeah.
because that's the main thing I learned from my work. And I would ask you to share some of the blessings you have with these children in Kenya, even a little bit would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Any little bit can help for sure.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Brett. And once again, appreciate you being on here. And like I said, I hope this helps out as much as possible and helps those kids over there because they definitely deserve it for sure.
Thank you,
So
Ashley. God bless you, and God bless all the people watching here.
thanks. All right, guys. Well, take care. Have a great holiday season, and we will